I'm live.
There you go.
I'm live. I'm going to just put that so that people can see me a little bit better.
Okay, there we go.
So I'm live. OMG, oh my goodness me. Hi, welcome, Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas, all of those kind of things on, all of the things, even on me mug. Yeah, I'm famous for the two-fingered salute. Yeah. So, right, now, Julie, who is here she is.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm going to stay out of the picture, though.
She has totally organised me. So, what can go wrong? Right, welcome. Oh, welcome. Hi, guys. Yeah, Merry Christmas and all that. Why am I doing this? It's down to a Patreon, Daniel, who mentioned, that there are a lot of people who are on their own or they need to stay at home. So, it would be a good idea. So we've done it. And you come and go as you please. You don't have to stay. You can just pop in. Now, I can't hear you. It's all in the comments, which are going up and down here. So Julie's going to monitor that and that kind of thing. So she says here, let us know where you're watching from and what the time is where you are. Yeah. It's for me personally, Christmas is a weird time, as it is for many people. We all have our ghosts, don't we? And 1984, I lost everything on Christmas Eve. I'd recently separated from my first wife. It wasn't my fault. And I lost my children, my house, my home, even my bloody dog and car. And then my closest best friend simply took his gun and killed himself. We were both in the army together. We were so close. I'd already stopped him from doing it once, but I thought we were there. And he was on duty. I was off duty. I went to wish him Merry Christmas before I went to bed. Give me a big hug. He says, don't come and get me in the morning till about 11. He says, then we'll go out for lunch together. We were always together. Bang. His one word on his suicide note was, I only have one regret in dying. I'm leaving you behind. You're my only friend. And I thought, how'd you doing it? Because you spiral down, don't you? And I decided I'd come out of the army, I'd become a mercenary, I'd go to Africa and fight for somebody else for money. And then something somewhere clicked. And I thought, what are you doing, Kevin? You're not a murderer. Yeah, of course you're a soldier. You'll fight, you'll kill if you have to, but you're not a murderer. And I thought, right, okay, we've got to reorganize your brain. And I was very much a loner, really. I've got friends within the army, but they were friends around me as opposed to being close like my mate Dennis was. So I joined the police. And as Christmas approached, as I was in training, it's ironic because I was dreading it. This was going to be my first Christmas having to deal with, a new life, I suppose. And I met Julie. And while I was in police training, and it completely altered the path. It's just amazing, isn't it? How one person can change your direction. And that direction has just been going on and on and on and on. But Christmas, I've got quite a few stories about being in the army and in the police at Christmas time. So as we go through, I'll probably regale you. Yeah. And we got a little pile of giveaways. I've got to read the giveaways. As a small thank you for spending part of Christmas Eve with us. We've got a couple of History Squad bits to give away later. Just need to write something in the chat to be eligible. Even hello will work. And then Julie will choose them and blah, blah, blah.
Well,
blah.
we'll do a random choice at the end. We're going to use an app to choose.
Are we? We're going to use an app. Kevin doesn't even know what an app really is. Now, I've got a question here. Oh, hang on, Kevin. I have watched you for many years. Who's this from?
Adam
Lord. I have watched you for many years. You were a big inspiration to me in my late teens, a role model in many ways. Oh, thanks for everything. You know, it's yeah. Do you know, it's how one person can make a difference, isn't it, in your life? I had a phone call, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and it was from a chap's wife. And she said, you know, look, were you police officer, were you PC Hicks down at Denham in Buckinghamshire? I says, yeah, I used to be. She says, well, my husband, I won't mention his name, would love to have a word with you. And I says, yeah, put him on. I knew him, I knew his sister, and I knew his mother. In fact, his mom and his sister, I really did know well. They became like a coffee stop. And I got involved with the family because his mom had been deserted. She was a single mom and had got these grown up kids. And then the daughter was run over, most horribly disfigured. And I stuck with the family as their local policeman and as a friend. I used to go and visit his sister in the hospital. And so I said, yeah, put him on. And he says, hi, Kevin. Or he says, hi, PC Hicks. I says, look, I'm Kevin. Yeah, I haven't been a police officer for years. And he said, I just wanted to tell you something. And I thought there was something, you know, there'd been a tragedy or something. And he said, I just wanted to say thank you. And I says, what for? He said, well, do you remember the first time you met me? And I had a thought, and I said, I'm sure I punched him. And he says, when I was sat on that wall, I was 16 years of age, and I was giving you all that gobshite stuff. And you just came up to me, and you says, what did you say? And I was just mouthing off at this police officer. And you punched me, knocked me flying over the wall. Then he went round the wall, grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, and dragged and frog marched me home to my mum. When she opened the door, she was absolutely horrified to see you there in your policeman's helmet and all that. And I said, does this belong to you? And she said, oh, yes. What's the problem? And I said, well, he's just been mouthing off to me. And I thought I'd bring him home and see what we can do about it. So I went in with him, had a cup of tea with mom and sister, who thought this was brilliant because Big Brother's finally been brought to heel. And what he says is, I knew that you were looking out for me, not to prosecute me, not to send me to prison, looking out for me. And he says, you put me on the straight and narrow. He says, I have my own business. I'm a businessman. He says, I don't live in that area anymore. He says, and I've had a successful life. And I've always said it's down to that one punch, the way you dragged me home, the way you kept an eye. And he says, I'm eternally grateful. And he's been in touch a few times. You know, his mum passed away. He let me know and all these kind of things. And it is interesting how one person, just a small little gesture or a little bit of help can make a difference. And that's, for me, that's often what Christmas is about. It's making a difference, isn't it? You know? Right, have we got any other comments we should read?
Well, we've got, yeah.
Oh, we got loads.
Big thank you to Adam Lord anyway. For
yeah, thanks, Adam Lord.
Yeah. Alyssa's on here. Alicia. Chris Cook, he's an avid supporter.
Oh, gosh, I got all these people saying everybody. Yeah, so, hi. I got one here from the ditch digger. I had an NCO in the army, a non-commissioned officer, like a corporal or a sergeant. And he would follow that man through the gates of hell. He really showed me what it meant to be a true leader. I appreciate him every day. And that's it, isn't it? Yeah. I've got the messages that are coming through. Merry Christmas, Kevin, from your old friends at the Great War Society, the Warwicks. Yeah, keep playing the bugle. Do you know, this is that one thing. So I come to Canada, I've got a bugle. And this bugle is Victorian, carried through the First World War, dented, and I learned to play it. I wasn't very good at the beginning, but I'm not bad now after 20 years of trying. But there was a young man, or there is a young man at the museum, Trigby, who where I work, the Saskatoon Museum of Military Artifacts, and he plays the cornet. And I said to him, would you like a bugle? I said, I've got a spare. And he says, well, why? And I said, well, we could practice together. So he takes the bugle And he practices and practices. And just a couple of weeks ago, this 19-year-old young man, I mean, he was 15 when we started, played the last post at the funeral of Reg Harrison, known locally as Crash Harrison. He was Bomber Command, a pilot during the Second World War, and he did all of his tours. And the nickname Crash Harrison was because he crashed 4 times. None of it was his fault. He was either shot down or the plane failed, that kind of thing. And to think that this young man, when I met him, he was just a 15-year-old lad who was joining in a bit of community support. He's now a prominent member of our museum staff, but he's also a member of the Legion upstairs. He's got his blazer, he's got his beret, and he's proficient enough to stand there and coolly play the last post. And he did it very well over this funeral of a very treasured, important World War II veteran who'd passed away. And he meant a lot locally. And it's just nice, isn't it? What one individual can do, you know? Yeah, let's see if I can find it.
Also, somebody else has sent us a super
Oh, so
thanks. Super thanks.
Gosh,
Yeah.
super thanks. So, you know, it is, isn't it? How you get touched. Pat O'Connell is one of our Patreons, and he has a tough time. He's a veteran, Canadian veteran. Loneliness, I think, he's a killer. Well, his house burnt down recently. And when you hear that he'd lost his house, his pets were killed in the fire, he wasn't there. And the reason I got told about it was somebody from his community knew that he was a fan of the History Squad and says, you know, can you help? So we've done, you know, little bits to help and all this kind of stuff. But his community has gathered around him at this time. And it's those Christian values, isn't it? I'm very strong on the idea of the Christian values. Yeah, I've never forgotten some of the hardest times in the army is when you've got a rifle in your hand and you know everybody back home is having a turkey dinner, but you're cold, tired, and scared. Yeah. And I hated terrorists, you know, and I've been to the scenes of murders on Christmas Eve is the worst one I ever did. And I won't go into details, but it just left me so shook up that on Christmas Eve, people could murder in front of children and things like this. Yeah. But of course it goes on. But then afterwards, the way people pick things up, people get on with Christmas, don't they? All right, I've got one here. Mr. Kerry, I love your channel. We've chatted before in your phone about the World War I hand surgeon and their techniques. Oh, right. Oh, gosh. Yeah, stories coming out, you know, how people have recovered from, this is Michael Diehart. Oh, Diehart. Diehart. I am sorry. It's close to Christmas, isn't it? And I haven't got my glasses on, so I'll go cross-eyed as well. Yeah. It's how he lost part of his left hand in 1979 from an accident, but he went to spend on 30 years as a firefighter. Do you know, somebody the other day, this is a teenager at the museum, and we were doing the last tour group, and this young man, he says he's a bit, you know, in the know. He's Afro-Caribbean, so I love the music, Bob Marley, and I love the culture because I grew up in it, really, in Birmingham. And this kid says, so you were in the army, was you? And I says, yes. How many kills have you got to your name? I said, I beg your pardon? How many kills have you got to your name? I said, what an awful question to ask somebody. I said, well, ask me a different question. And he was saying, I says, ask me how many lives I've saved. Well, how many lives you've saved? I said, I don't know. I said, lots. And he's looking at me. I said, you know, it takes nothing to aim and shoot at somebody or stick a knife in somebody. I said, but run into a burning building, crawl into a car that's on fire to rescue somebody. I said, I've done all of that. I says, and firefighters, paramedics, and police officers, they do it every day. And then just the other day, you know, when down at Bondi, I was so terrible. I've been there. When the massacre of those Jewish people, you know, and you had that guy run towards the shooter. Now that's courage, isn't it? Yeah. So Hollywood and all of that, you know, how many kills have you had? But actually, the real heroes are the people who go in. Yeah. The people in hospital every day who go in to do that surgery. Wow. So at Christmas time, you know, I often think of the people who are doing the stuff. I used to be one. I did it for years. I lost a lot of Christmases doing duty, but it was just a different Christmas. Yeah. I don't know if there's any armed forces guys and girls when you had drum fire first thing in the morning. In the British Army, they used to wake you up with the drummer. He'd come in and they'd dish out rum to you first thing in the morning. And then later on, when you had Christmas dinner, it would be served by the senior NCOs and there might be an officer there. And that, it made a difference because you might be there in your combats, you might be there ready to go out, you might even have your rifle on your lap. But they've made an effort. And yeah. So that's it, isn't it? Let's see what we've got here.
Yeah, I'll leave for a moment.
Oh, hang on. Hello, Kevin. This is number one history man. I'm the kid from 2 years ago who came to the museum and donated that Bismarck ship model. Matthew.
Yeah.
Gave you the Dutch badge. How are you, Matthew? See, this is it, isn't it? The difference. We've got a young man there who's growing up, and he comes to the museum and he's become part of it. Right. Apologies for asking directly, but is that something you both will be interested in if I sent you a Victorian newspaper? Yeah, I'm always interested in that kind of artifact, you know, and Victorian newspapers, they're fascinating. I've got so many Merry Christmases. Oh, Frau Weihnachten von Germany. Fröhliche Weihnachten von Deutschland. You know, do you know, I've got to get to grips with German. I can speak about a third of the language quite well. So I'm going to, next year, 2026, hand on heart, Kevin is going to improve his German. I keep him in the cellar. He's a little fella and he comes out every night. No, speak German. And I want to take Julie over to Germany and show her my view of Germany. You know, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it. I was raised on the back of the First and Second World War. There were gaps in my family, serious gaps, grandfathers, uncles, and that who'd been killed. And also uncles and another grandfather who were badly scarred. And my mother and father who'd been children in the Blitz, right? So they'd been under the bombs. So I was raised, Germany. Ooh, Germans, you know, what the Germans did. Oh, the Germans. And so I was kind of raised to be, whoa, the Germans. And then joined the British Army. The first thing they say is, right, you're going to Berlin. Off you go, Berlin now. And I thought, oh, Berlin. Where is Berlin? Yeah, I'm an inner city kid from the middle of England. Berlin used to be the capital of Germany, but it's not anymore because that's moved to Bonn because Berlin has a wall around it. Does it? I find myself in Berlin and wowed by this walled city. And then they say, that's cover Hicks, you're not stopping in Berlin. You're going to Helmstedt, right on the West-East German border on the DDR and West Germany. But it was not a military town. It's a German town with a British military establishment, the Autobahn Control Detachment. Our job was to patrol the East German corridor up to Berlin through the Russian zones and man checkpoints. So I lived in the street with Germans. And I went to the shops with Germans. And I went to the pub with Germans. And I learned to dance with Germans. And I suddenly found that they were exactly the same as me. Probably dressed a bit better and more polite. And I fell in love with Germany. Me and a friend of mine, Russ Betts, Bunny Betts, we went all the way down to Bavaria. Did a tour of Bavaria and Schwarzwald, the Black Forest. Loved it. Bought a cuckoo clock. Lost it in my divorce. And I've been back quite a few times to Germany. Bitburg, I went there to teach archery to some American school children. but mainly back to Berlin. I think I've been 5 or 6 times back to Berlin taking school groups, and I've absolutely loved it. But I can't wait to get down into real Germany, have a look at the back roads to the small towns. Right.
Richard McPherson says that there's now apparently part of the Berlin Wall has been put up at Eastner Castle in Herefordshire.
Good Lord, part of the Berlin Wall has been put up at Eastner Castle. Do you know, I've got a piece here somewhere.
Yeah, just behind
that. Kevin's piece of the Berlin Wall. But do you know the best piece of the Berlin Wall? It's just off Bernauer Straße in Berlin. What the East German authorities did was they built the Berlin Wall right in front of the Friedhof, the cemetery there. Flattened all the gravestones, minefield, barbed wire, then the second wall. I used to patrol up and down Bernauer Straße, and there were so many incidents. People died there trying to get over the wall, all of these different things. Now, there is the Berlin Wall Museum and a memorial to all those who died. But there's a secret, and it's typical of modern day Germany. I've got my dog here. I'll get him up in a minute. There's a little white cross away from the Berlin Wall Memorial on a lovely piece of green grass. And it used to be part of the cemetery there. And I found out that it's a mass grave. It's a mass grave from the Blitz. So all of the men, women, oi, what are you doing? All the men, women, and children that were killed in this particular Blitz are buried in this one spot. But the grave was covered over by the Berlin Wall. Well, now it's nice green grass and a single white cross and nothing else. And I was telling the children, or my students, all about this. Now I take them to the Commonwealth War Grave, the bomber command, where all the pilots and crew are buried in Berlin. Take them to Sachsenhausen concentration camp, all the different parts that go to kind of show you the war in Berlin. But I'm a great believer, and you've got to give a balance here. And as I'm telling the children, you know, so you've got to make up your mind. You know, who was right, who was wrong, the Blitz, the bombing, this, that, and the other, Sachsenhausen. And as I'm then having the after chat with the kids, they're coming up with these responses. I say, oh, it was total war. It was complete, wasn't it? You know, who are we to judge kind of thing. And I thought that was really grown up. And as I'm walking away, a German chap stopped me. Very well dressed, Berliner. And he says, you was a red cap. I says, yeah. And you patrolled Bernauer Straße? Yeah. He says, I remember you boys. And he said, I was listening to what you were telling your students. He said, I've never heard that before. And I call it der anderen Seite, the other side. And he says, we rescued the bells from the cathedral before the East German authorities knocked it down. We have them here now on the site of the cathedral. We're going to ring them. I've asked my colleagues, and we would like you to come and ring the bells for us, or with us. And so there's all these very lovely, nicely dressed Germans. He's me dressed ready to fly out of Berlin. And they're all very gently pulling the bells, yes, and ding-donging properly. And Kevin, he's got like the berserk hunchback of Notre Dame. But it was an honor. And they all shook my hands afterwards. And it was nice, you know. It's the difference, isn't it, people make. Right, have we got a comment here?
So, yeah, we have. So, where is it? Craig Giles. How does Santa protect his castle? Trebuchet.
Oh my God, that's really good. How does Santa Claus protect his castle? With a trebuchet.
Nice one, Craig.
Nice one. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. There are so many comments that they're coming up, and it's quite lovely to see, you know, people who are alone, that are away from their families. And this was the idea. We didn't do this for publicity. We didn't do this to, you know, fill in a bit of time. We did this because it's important. If you're on your own, if you could do with, you know, just a little bit of a chat or listen to my voice. I listen to it all the time. Yeah. It's just nice, isn't it? Now, Christmas sweaters. Julie's got a sparkly sweater. There are people walking around with these. There's her sparkly Christmas sweater. This is what my son purchased for me. This is Stuart, my son in Canada.
Yeah.
That kind of reflects my childhood. Kevin! Yeah, because I was always in trouble. Yeah. If there was a window that looked too nice, yes, Kevin would put a ball through it. It was just one of those things. Kevin is a Kevin. Yeah. Right. Let's see what else we've got in here. Now, we'll put this up. Do you want me to do a ghost story as part of anything? If you do, then just let us know. And here's a question. Because I love mince pies at Christmas. Only at Christmas. I love mince pies. And I didn't realize they don't have mince pies all over the world. They have mince tarts, but they don't have pies. A tart is an open pie. A pie has got a crust over the top. Yeah. So if you like mince pies, give us a shout. I haven't got any left. I ate them all. Yeah. And what's your favorite Christmas drink? You know, and that's quite something, isn't it?
Who likes eggnog?
Eggnog. I remember eggnog when I was a child because I used to steal it and think to myself, what's the big deal with eggnog? Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Quickly say hello. Oh. Right. It's time to grab the dog. Right, you go behind him.
Okay.
Got him.
There we go. Oh.
Here he is. This is Ollie. Oh. He makes those little noises when we cuddle up. And he's halfway through his course as being my service dog for PTSD. There's a ball on the floor. He worships balls, as you can see, right? But you have to throw it for him. He's absolutely adorable, but he's a thief. He will steal anything. Handkerchiefs. You can put a sock down ready to put it on. Before you got it over your toe, he's run away.
Just about to put your foot in a slipper.
Yeah, put your foot in a slipper, the slipper's gone. And if you don't chase him, he brings it back and look what I've got. Yeah, so that's the dog. What's your eye?
Just a thank you to Matt.
Yeah.
Paul Henderson.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Paul Henderson,
Cindy Williams.
And Cindy Williams. You know, it's really nice. It's endearing to me because I had an incident yesterday. We did a special tour around the museum and I built the memorial corner, and we've got photographs of all of the fallen from the Canadian Army in Afghanistan, for instance. And I was relating to this small group of people about, you know, what it feels like to be in that corner. And of course, I can see in my own mind the fallen of my time in the service. And without any prompt, just tears just come up to my eyes. I mean, I'm 70 years of age. I was a young kid. I was in my late teens and 20s and things, you know, and 30s as a cop. To think that sometimes, you know, that past, it doesn't diminish. It doesn't go away. Yeah, it still hurts. And yesterday was a bit of a reminder for me because I do quite well amongst the family. But me and my son, Stuart, I mean, he was in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as Bosnia and Northern Ireland. We, on a Christmas day, we pull away from the family. We'll go and sit down and have a cup of tea. We don't talk. But on his mantelpiece, he has a photograph of his best friend who didn't make it. I have one of mine, you know. So there it is. Right, what we got. Yeah. So we got, do you want a Christmas? Oh, hang on. Merry Christmas, Kevin and Julie from Calgary. Funny people in Calgary. I've been there. You drive around in circles wondering, how are you ever going to get off that ring road? Yeah?
And I got a nice zoo.
Oh, you got a nice zoo. Yeah. Merry Christmas, Kevin and Julie from Calgary. Watching your channel always makes me think of my grandpa who served in the RAF during World War II. If he was still with us, he'd get a huge kick out of hearing your stories. I tell you, as a little kid, I used to sit at the knees of my great uncles who'd all fought in the war. One of them was SAS, so he was, wow, you know. And I'd listen to their stories, and they talk about my Uncle Albert, who didn't make it. He was killed in Normandy. I've got a dog chewing on my chair, so if you can hear her, it's Ollie. And I've never forgotten. They're all dead. They're all long gone. But I've never forgotten their stories. And I relay their stories. I mean, I met my next door neighbor in Helmstedt, Little Willie. I used to call him Kleiner Willie. And he used to think I called him Little Wilhelm, but I wasn't. I was calling him Little Willie, an English play on words, yeah? But the one day he stopped me, and I didn't know he knew my name. And what it was is I'd won a shoot, a German police shoot, and I'd won part of it. And he says, you must come round. I didn't realize you were a shooter, Kevin. And I says, oh, yeah. I says, I love it. And he said, well, I'm the Jägermeister. I'm the local hunt master. And he was really important in the local hierarchy, yeah? And so I went round it, and it was very rare to get invited round to an older German's house. Middle-aged and under, no problems at all. But sometimes those who've been in the war, you very rarely had a conversation. But Wilhelm and his wife, they made me very welcome. And he was at Stalingrad. He'd been captured, spent 4 years in a coal mine, hardly saw any daylight at all. Big wound, scars all down his one face. But he was a flamethrower operator, Flammenwerfer. And he photographed so much of what he did and where he'd served. And it kind of shook me up. I've got army photographs. It's Kev going like that, yeah? Not of people who, had been killed and that kind of thing. But he says, the one thing I can't understand, Kevin, is why the Allies, the British and the Americans and the French and everybody, why didn't you come in on the side of the Germans against the Russians? And I had to have a conversation with him of giving him my historical point of view. And he looked at me, he says, I never thought of it. You see, in my world, Russia was the complete enemy. He said, I never fought on the Western Front. And then he prompted me to meet other Germans of the older people and chat to them and discuss what they did in the war. And I got der anderen Seite, the other side. These people who lived in Berlin and had to stand on the side of the road, they had to do it. They had to wave their little Nazi flags and they had to give the salute. But what I learned is many of them, they would shout across the street to their friends, Heinrich, how high is the snow in your neighborhood? And then they'd give the salute. Oh, it's this high. Oh, we got no snow, and all these kind of things. And it brings it alive, so much so that I'm going to open up a little section in the museum for stories, because we have a guy at our local Legion who was a Blitz kid in Germany. And his stories are exactly the same as my mother's. Exactly the same. The sound of the sirens, the sound of the aeroplanes coming, the whistling of the bombs. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness me, all those little children. Yeah, but of course, I tell the story in Berlin. I stand the kids on the graves and tell the story. Anyway, enough of that. Let's see what we've got here.
So there's a couple of people that would like ghost stories.
Right, okay.
And so I don't know if they want you to read a ghost story or whether they want some of your own little ghostly stories.
Oh, right, okay. I'm just reading one. I'm the baby. Who's this then? That's Michael D. Hart. Yeah, I'm the baby of 7 kids. My dad was 47 when I was born in 64. Wow. Dad was a combat veteran in the US Air Force in the Asiatic Pacific campaign in Iwo Jima. Wow. Do you know, I was talking to somebody who's been there since then and walked the battlefields, and he says it's so ghostly. Yeah. Hi from England. I enjoy your channel. My family come from the fishing in Grimsby. My father was lost at sea in 79. My great-grandfather was on the minesweepers in the First World War. We all have a history, don't we? My great-grandfather, I don't know if any of I've ever mentioned it before, was killed on the 27th, 28th of August, 1918. And his memory was wiped out from the family. And when I was a little kid, I sat with my grandmother and said, so who was your mum and dad? And she said, oh, my dad was killed on the Somme. End of story. So when I joined the army and I go and visit my grandmother, I said, so what happened to your dad? Well, he had his head blown off on the Somme. Who was he? Oh, his name was Samuel. So in later years, I've really looked into who Samuel Simpson was. And his family, his wife remarried. And in that marriage, Samuel Simpson's memory was wiped away. Nothing. His medals, death penny, all of his belongings were sent back. And I didn't know this. And they were all disposed of somehow. So I've recently found out exactly where he was killed. He was killed just about 12 miles east of Arras. And he was killed fighting alongside the Australians on the 100-day offensive. But I've also found out that he joined in 1915, but it was sent home because he was a specialist in the munitions industry. He was then called up in July to go back to the colours and was killed in the August. He was buried properly. The Australians buried him and they recorded his grave. The battle then went forward and back and forward. And after the war, the graves were recovered. 40 of them were unknown. 40 of them. One of that 40 was my great-grandfather, Sam. I now know where he's buried. He's buried on the Suzanne No. 3 cemetery, which is in nowhere. It's not even next to a road. It's in the middle of nowhere. But me, Kev, I'm going to go. And I shall go and bow my head in that cemetery one day. Yeah, it's quite something. Right, you got anything else?
Well, there's a few people want ghost stories, and I'm still not sure whether they want like we've got the signalman.
We've got Charles Dickens' signalman story standing by. It was the one we were going to use. So what we do then is I'll simply tell you this story, because the ghost stories from then are not like the ghost stories of today. It's got an edge to it. Oh, hang on a second. My dog's asleep. Time for a slur. If you go back, of course, to the early and mid-Victorian period, there was no such thing as zombies, vampires, what was he called? Frankenstein. This is all to come. And of course, with the advent of the horror stories in film, people are often desensitized until you meet a storyteller. Yeah. And this is Charles Dickens with just a spooky bit of a story. So I'll move through. And it's a chap describing his experience when he went down a railway cutting to a tunnel where there was a signalman. The first time I saw him, I was calling into a deep railway cutting carved out of the earth like an old wound. Hello, hello below there. The signalman stood outside the door of his tiny signal box, his flag rolled tight in his hand. You'd think anyone would know where the voice was coming from, straight above him. But instead of looking up, he turned and stared down the track as though he was expecting something dreadful to emerge from the tunnel. There was something peculiar about that movement, a stiffness, a dread. It unsettled me even before I stood by, or before I understood why. Hello below, I called again. This time he turned. His slow upward gaze found me silhouetted against the angry red sunset. I shaded my eyes to see him clearly in the dark trench below. Is there a way down? I asked. A path I can take. Well, a path I can take to speak with you. Oh, right, he can come up to speak to him. He didn't. No, I'm getting it wrong. He said, is there a way down? I asked. A path I can take to speak to you. He didn't answer. He only stared. Then the ground vibrated. First a whisper, then a violent pulse. A train tore through the cutting beneath me, steam rising in a roaring wave. I stepped back instinctively, as if the engine might pull me down into the path. So Charles Dickens is building up the tension, isn't he? When the smoke drifted off into the fields, I looked down again. The signalman calmly rewrapped his flag. I repeated the question. He watched me for a long moment, then finally signalled with his rolled flag to a point along the edge of the cutting. All right, I shouted, and walked down that way until I found a rough zigzag path hacked into the damp stone. The descent was colder and narrower. Do you know, I've been to a place like this, so I can understand exactly what he's talking about. It was damp. His descent was colder and narrower than it had looked from above. The rock walls seemed to sweat. Moisture oozed through the stone. The deeper I went, the more the place felt like a grave with rails at the bottom. His earlier reluctance to direct me here echoed in my mind. Near the bottom, I could see him again. He stood between the rails, stiff and expectant, his left hand on his chin, his elbow resting across his chin, watching, waiting. The posture chilled me without explanation. At last, I stepped onto the railway level. He was pale and dark-haired, with heavy brows and a beard. Around him, the cutting felt like a dungeon, high, dripping walls on either side, the sky reduced to a thin strip overhead. One way, the track disappeared round a crooked bend. The other, it led to a dull red danger light, glowing over a black tunnel mouth that looked more like an ancient tomb than a structure of brick stone. A cold wind rushed through the trench, carrying the sour smell of wet earth and something older. Do you know, it's quite funny, isn't it? Because I've been into these deep tunnels and I can really understand what he's talking about. Before I reached out a hand, he stepped back and raised his own, still watching me as though I might be a threat. A lonely post you've got here, I said lightly, trying to break the tension. I thought a visitor might be welcome. He stared again towards the red signal light, scanning around it with an uneasy intensity, then back at me. That light's part of your job, isn't it? I asked. His voice, when it came, was low and strange. Don't you know it is? A shiver passed over me. For a moment, just a moment, the unsettling thought rose that he wasn't entirely human, that he was part of the gloom here, bound to it. But then I caught in his wary expression a trace of fear of me. That grounded me again. You look at me, I said, trying to smile, as if you are afraid of me. I wasn't sure, he murmured, whether I'd seen you before. Where? He pointed to the red light. There? I asked. He nodded, watching me closely. Something was wrong, very wrong, but I had no idea yet how wrong. Isn't this exciting? Inside his little box, warmed by a small fire, the signalman told me about his solitary life. Clanging bells, changing signals, trimming lamps, listening to the telegraph bowl. He spoke politely, carefully, and with a surprising level of education. Once, he said, he'd studied natural philosophy, but he'd wasted his chances. Now he lived down here in this wet stone trench, night after night, with only the humming of the wires and the tunnel for company. Need a quick slurp? He spoke calmly until the moments when he froze mid-sentence. He went pale, stared towards the door as though someone had called his name. Twice he opened the door when the bell had not rung and peered anxiously towards the red light. When I rose to leave, I said lightly, "You almost make me think I've met a contented man." He flinched. I used to be contented, but I'm troubled. I'm troubled, sir. With what? It's very hard to explain, he whispered. If you come again tomorrow night, I'll try. I will, I promised. He walked me out. When you go up the path, don't call out, he said softly. And when you come down tomorrow, don't call out then either. A chill passed through me. All right. And tell me, why did you call hello below there tonight? Heaven knows, I said. I simply saw you and called. You had no feeling that the words were given to you in any supernatural way? No, I said firmly. He said good night, held up his white lamp as I walked away. The next night at 11, he was waiting at the bottom of the path. Once inside, he leaned forward. I'll tell you everything. Yesterday, I mistook you for someone else. That troubles you. No, someone else troubles me. Who is it? I don't know. I never see the face. The left arm is across it. The right arm, he threw his arm into a sudden violent gesture, waves like this, urgently, wildly, as if shouting, for God's sake, clear the way. I felt goose flesh rise. One moonlit night, he continued, I heard a voice cry, hello, below there. I looked out and saw the figure by the red light, waving. As I grabbed you, its voice was hoarse with shouting, look out, look out. I grabbed my lamp and ran towards it. When I reached out to pull down its arm, it vanished. Into the tunnel? No. I ran in myself, 500 yards, searching everywhere. Nothing. He telegraphed up and down the alarm. Alarm given. Anything wrong? Both replies came back. All is well. I tried to reassure him. Hallucinations could be caused by stress, nerves, distorted sound in the cutting. The wind itself moaned like something living. He let me speak, then said softly, 6 hours after that appearance, the great accident happened on this line. The dead and the wounded were brought through the tunnel over the exact spot where the spectre stood. A shudder ran through me. Then he said, months passed. I almost forgot it. Then one morning at daybreak, I saw it again, leaning against the post, both hands covering its face, mourning. And nothing came of that. He touched my arm. A young woman died on the train that day. Suddenly, they brought her in here, laid her right where you're sitting. I drew back involuntarily. And a week ago, he whispered, it returned. Now it appears by fits and starts. It waves at me, calls to me, ring my bell. Oh, no, it rings my bell. Sorry. Yeah. At this point, I protested. I watched the bell last night. It did not ring. It did, he insisted. The spectre's ring doesn't move the bell. It vibrates in the air. You wouldn't hear it, but I do. We stepped outside. The danger light glowed. The tunnel yawned. The walls dripped. The stars stared coldly down. Nothing moved. Inside again, he said hopelessly, what does it mean? What danger? Something dreadful is coming. After the first two warnings, how can I doubt the third? He was agonized, tormented. I calmed him as best I could before leaving. I resolved to persuade him the next day to see a doctor. But fate had already moved beyond both of us. It's quite good when you read it out loud, actually. Yeah, when I read it last night, it's okay. So the next evening was a beautiful one. I walked early, planning to visit him after sunset. Before wandering on, I stepped to the edge of the cutting, just where I had first seen him. And my breath caught. At the tunnel mouth stood a man with his left arm over his eyes, his right arm waving wildly. For a sickening moment, terror seized me. I thought the spectre itself had returned. Then I saw other men standing nearby. The danger light was unlit. A new tarpaulin hut stood beside it. With dread rising in me like ice water, I hurried down the path. What's happened? I cried. Signalman killed this morning, sir. Not him, not the man I'd come to help. Yes, sir, the worker said. You'll know him if you see him. He lifted the tarpaulin just enough for me to see the calm, lifeless face. I turned away, shaken. How did this happen? He was struck by an engine, the man said. No one knew his work better, but somehow he wasn't clear of the line. Broad daylight. He just lit the signal and still had the lamp in his hand. His back was towards the engine as it came out the tunnel and cut him down. Another man stepped forward, the driver. Show the gentleman, Tom, the worker said. The driver walked to the spot facing the tunnel. Coming around the curve, he said, I saw him at the tunnel mouth, as though he was looking at him down a long spyglass. No time to slow much. He was careful, so I expected him to move. But he didn't seem to hear the whistle, so I shut it off and shouted as loud as I could. What did you shout? I asked. He repeated the words, below there, look out, for God's sake, clear the way. A tremor ran through me. Those were the exact words the signal man had heard the spectre shouting. They were the exact words I myself had called down to him the first time we met. The driver continued, voice thick. I kept shouting. I put this arm. He covered his eyes so I wouldn't see the moment we hit him, and I waved this arm. He swung it violently until the very last, but it was no use. I said nothing more. There was nothing to say. The warnings the signalman had seen, the frantic gestures, the mournful posture, the cries, the bell, had not foretold a distant catastrophe. They had foretold of his own. Everything he had dreaded had pointed silently and terribly back to the one man. He believed them. In the end, the spectre's message came true, exactly as he described it. Hello, below there. Look out, for God's sake, clear the way. Warnings he could never escape, because they were meant for him all along. The signalman had not been haunted by a ghost. He'd been haunted by the future. Now to us, it's a bit of a story, isn't it? But now take yourself back to a fireplace where uncle or grandfather or your father has just told you that story. Candles or oil lamps around. Wind gently blowing outside. Maybe it started snowing. Right, children, time for bed. Hello. They would have had the effect, wouldn't they? I remember many times, both in the army and in the police indeed, and with my reenactment friends when we've been out of a night time and we're camping or whatever, and somebody will tell the story, often me, and sometimes a spooky story, make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Yeah, I love it. Right, but my wife, Julie, is now waving to me. My dog is snoring gently.
So we've had some questions and I've sort of copied and pasted them out. So Matt Borgerson, excuse me if I pronounced that wrong, Matt, was the plague in any way portrayed in horror stories in medieval England? Now, we were talking about medieval ghost stories, weren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Was the plague, relayed in ghostly stories? What I've seen is the plague was constant. We think of some of the great plagues like the 1346s and the 1665 plagues. Excuse me, but the plague was constant. It might flare up. It might lower down. It could wipe out a village here, but not there. People weren't so much afraid of the plague. They were afraid of death himself. And it was he who was portrayed in the ghost stories. Yeah. Terry Pratchett, one of his first stories on Discworld is about death. And I like it because it almost humanizes death. Yeah. He's going to try a mince pie. Why do these people do all these things? I'd like to try being alive just to see what it's like. Mince pies are really nice. Right. Yeah.
A couple of others then. I'm going to get back to you, Richard, in a bit. But Sean Leake has asked, can we get the story on the picture to your left with the dog with Mark?
Oh, yeah. So my eldest son, he lost my dog tags. I gave them to him, and through one thing or another, he lost them. So he got me some replacement ones, which I hang here. But this was a press photograph. This is Kevin as a corporal in the Royal Military Police with Mark, the dog. And he was a very good dog. We won the All-Ireland Military Dog Championships. Let's see if I'm going wrong here. There we go. And we're outside Pergamos Camp. Pergamos Camp, you can see it written there. It's kind of an anomaly because if you went to Cyprus in those days, it was divided by the blue line. Greece to the south, or Greece Cypriots to the south, Turkish Cypriots to the north, all the way across Cyprus. Tragedy, terrible tragedy for such a wonderful island. There had been 1974 war between Greece and Turkey. I'm not going to go into it, the politics. I have seen the results of it, yeah, the graves and the dispossessed. But if you come right the way to the eastern part of Cyprus, just north of the eastern sovereign base area, Decalia, the British base there. There is a bubble in the blue line, and the UN stopped there. Then the Turks have this surrounded bit, then the blue line starts again. And that bit in the middle is owned by the British. And right in the middle of that spot was Pergamos Camp, where we put our very important people. I can't go into it because it's all secret. Yeah. And my job was to sort things out. And I will tell you this, I sorted things out. I really did sort things out, but hey, that's a whole
video on Cyprus. You got some of your stories.
Oh yeah, I did yeah. I got on my playlist some of the stories, and it's quite funny when you think back and you think, did I actually do that? Yeah, I can guarantee there are some stories I'll never tell for sure. Yeah, right. Anything else?
Yes. Okay. So Smudge, Mr. Hicks, bar the ghost you experienced on the stretcher, and you held his hand. Have you experienced any?
Oh, going live. We're live again.
Hey, gosh, that
sorry,
was scary.
Don't know why. Perhaps we'd overspent our time. Had I experienced any other ghosts apart from the guy on the stretcher? Do you know, I used to, especially around Warwick Castle, I'd go and book out the keys in the morning. Sometimes, because I used to go up there from South Wales and stay in our little caravan, and I could go to work a couple of hours early, sometimes 3 or 4 hours early, and just wander the castle, have a bacon sandwich or something, and take it in. And I used to go and book out the keys from the security of all the locked doors. And I remember sitting down with my cup of tea and a bacon sandwich in a room. And this room, October the 24th, 1642, had been the scene of so much death and pain. And it's where Lord Lindsay cradled his father. No, Viscount Lindsay cradled his father, Lord Lindsay, who'd been shot through the chest at the Battle of Edge Hill, which was nearby, in the English Civil War Cavaliers and Roundheads. They were royalists and they'd been captured. He'd been captured with his father. And his father literally bled out and died in his son's arms. But they weren't alone in this room, the monuments room, quite a big room. It was packed full of wounded and dying royalist soldiers. So was the room upstairs and the room upstairs. And they reckon that the blood literally dripped down the steps and out into the courtyard as these hundreds of poor wounded men died. And later on, in fact, they found a grave by the door of 2 youngsters who'd been killed. So I'm sat there having my cup of tea, leaning against the wall. And I thought to myself, I'm not alone. There's somebody talking here, whispering. And you try it and you catch the odd word and the odd accent. And I was thinking, oh my goodness me, there's something lingering here, you know. So I went back a couple of times and just relaxed, and sure enough. And I spoke to a few of the old timers who worked at the castle, and they were the same. They said, yeah, the voices, it's quite something. Well, those voices, Chepstow Castle was another place that where you could feel or half hear these things. So yeah, and something brushing past you is quite the thing at Warwick as well. The woman who disappears down the stairway that's gone, it's been bricked up, but she still walks it. They are quite something. But the First World War ones, some of the places you go, you almost feel like an intruder. They don't want you here. And that is unsettling. But the grip of the soldier's hand on my hand, now that was something else. I tell you where there's a strange anomaly is in Birkenau, Auschwitz II. but you won't feel it unless you go off the beaten path and spend time in one place. The thing about Auschwitz 1, the concentration camp, you're on a tour, yeah? But Birkenau, you can do a tour, then you can come back, and that's what I did. We spent quite an extensive couple of days there. And I wanted to go where the gypsies, the Hungarians and the gypsies have been kept in their huts with their wives and children and then killed. And my friends asked me why. I said, because these people were here the longest, and they really did suffer even more than you could imagine. I said, so just wait. Just, don't touch anything, because there's forks and spoons and shoe leather and things all around where these huts used to be. I said, just relax, and then you feel it. It just creeps over you. Yeah, the absolute sheer horror of where you're standing, and it kind of cloaks over you. You don't get that at the gas chambers. Yeah, but then if you go to other places where people stayed and then were killed, you really do feel it. And there's said to be ghosts that you can see in the distance, but I didn't experience. But it's the feeling. You're picking up the residue. Yeah. So that's it, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
There was
Any more?
Did you want to tell them about your experience at Hastings? That was
right.
Scary.
Yeah.
If you want to.
No, I'll tell you. Don't challenge me. You challenge me. To say I'm not scared of anything is stupid, because I think I'm stupid, right? And I will go. Don't go there. It's a minefield. Really? Let's have a look. Don't go there. It's haunted. Really? Let's go and have a look. So I did a reenactment on the Battle of Hastings site on the anniversary, 1066-ish, and off I went. And I says, let's go onto the battlefield. And people, don't go onto the battlefield at the dead of night, especially near the anniversary. It's said to be the most haunted place on God's earth. And I'm going, oh, really? So I had 25 blokes, men, all dressed in period costume. We're going to go onto the battlefield just past midnight. Kev's going to lead us. Well, Kev's the insane one. One by one, they went, oh, no, I'm too tired now. I'm too drunk. Oh, my legs ache. And I ended up with 2 girls. Yeah. Oh, we'll come. We'll come and see the ghosties. I says, great. Okay. Now, the reason the battlefield is haunted is the Saxon dead, thousands of them, were left where they died. And they rotted into the ground. Nothing was ever recovered. Harold, maybe, and 1 or 2 others, but the majority. And it was said, decades and decades later, you could still see the rib cages and the skulls of the Saxon dead. And there is this popular belief that, where the dead lie and they've not been buried properly, they will walk the earth. And I'm, okay, let's go and have a look. So we walk onto the battlefield and the mist comes down. Upon the rise there where the Saxons defended their line, there is the abbey, which is now derelict, but that wasn't there in the day. As we're walking forward, the mist is rolling down. It's cold, it's clammy, it's October, and I'm thinking, this wasn't a good idea, Kev, but we're going to go now because there's a girl here and there's a girl there. Well, grown women. And I'm not going to be scared. If they're not scared, I'm not going to be scared. And I kept saying, are you girls okay? And they're going, yes. Are you scared? No. And we're walking through the battlefield. And I will tell you, the mist was closing round us. And there was a chill. It wasn't nice. And we get to the base of the rise. And all of a sudden, bang, right in my face, pushed me back. And I recoiled. But what I didn't realize, the girls had been pushed back as well. And we went, oh. And we thought, oh, have we tripped? What's the problem? So we regain ourselves and we try to walk up this little rise where it was the seat of the most vicious fighting. Bang, pushed away again. Bang. Then voices all around us. And it was horrible. And I thought to myself, I think I may have shit myself. That's what I thought, because I was scared to death. But I went, are you girls all right? And they went, no, I'm really scared. I said, well, don't worry, so am I. Yeah, check that the girls are scared before me. So we turned around. But as we turned around, the voices came all the way around us. And it felt as if the mist had literally closed down on us. As we were walking back, we found the path, and Kevin's foot went through a slab, a stone slab. And I ripped my ankle, tore it. Oh, God. All of a sudden, those voices came over us. We eventually got away. We got back and we sat down. The three of us sat down. My ankle was going, ying, ying, ying. And I said, what just happened? I said, did you feel it? Did you hear it? And our experiences were exactly the same. One of the ladies was a professional. She was a barrister at law. The other lady had her own business as well as being a mum and a wife. They weren't silly girls. These were actually very level-headed women. And I'll tell you now, I'd think twice about going onto that battlefield because, in my opinion, the dead aren't at rest. Yeah. Okay. Oh, hi, Kevin. I'm from Brown Hills, and me and my husband worked in Lichfield. My husband thinks he may have met you on your checkpoint in Germany. Oh, God. Brown Hills. I know Brown Hills. I know Brown Hills very well. My first wife was from Brown Hills. I used to haunt. I lived up in Chase Terrace. And, oh, wow. Yeah. And I lived in Lichfield and blah. Oh, wow. And you may have been through one of the checkpoints. Wow. Hi. Yeah. Leslie. It's a small world, isn't it? You know, my best friend who killed himself, Dennis, he was from Hensford. Yeah. So, wow.
We have another question. What's the story behind the 2 arrows on the shelf there behind you?
The 2 arrows on the shelf. Well, this was my first professional arrow ever made by Richard Head Longbows a long time ago. 30 years, was it? Or 25, 30 years?
About 30 years, yeah.
When I got headhunted by Warwick Castle to come and work there, I had a dozen really good arrows made as presentation. And the one day I come into Julie, I says, look, there's an opportunity here. If we grasp it with both hands, we'll have a new career, because I'd been invalided out the police and I was rebuilding my health. And I says, this is our golden arrow. So we sprayed it gold. Yeah. And we've kept it. But here is a copy of a medieval arrow that was sent to me. Oh, gosh. Who sent it? What's his name?
It's kind of Spanishy kind of name. I
can't remember now.
Oh,
and this is a copy.
No.
We'll try and find the name. I'm sorry, because I've got so many names. But this is a copy of the Westminster arrow. Yeah. There is a copy of a Type 16. And look at the work. Where are we?
There you go.
Look at the work that's gone into that. Yeah. Beautiful. And it's quite heavy. It's barreled. It's thicker in the center. And because it's presentation, it sits there quite proudly. I've got other arrows, but those 2 there are to remind me of who I am. I'm just Kevin the bowman. Yeah. I used to be in the army. I used to be a cop, but I'm just Kevin. That's all. You know, people, I get a bit embarrassed sometimes. No offense to anybody, but somebody comes, oh, gosh, it's you. You're the guy. YouTube, Kevin, History Squad. And I'm going, all right, how are you? And they go, oh, and I'm thinking to myself, calm down. It's just Kevin. Yeah. I've got no pretense at all. Yeah. It's just me, I'm afraid. Yeah. So him from I love that, from Brown Hills. Gosh. Tamworth Castle was interesting. Somebody enjoyed that. Yeah. People reminded of some of their own things. Kevin, what do you think about Austro-Hungary? My great-grandfather was an artillery officer until he left in 1903. Do you know, it's interesting, isn't it? There's a massive chunk missing out of popular history, and that's the Austro-Hungarian Empire. that great big chunk of an empire in the middle of Europe. And I was talking about it yesterday in the museum. And I said, and this is a question for you, if Archduke Franz Joseph had not been, was it Franz Joseph?
Yeah,
Archduke Ferdinand.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was the emperor. If he'd have not been assassinated with Sophia, his wife, first of all, they'd have had 3 children. They'd already got 2 sons. But I was reading how his thoughts for the future of the empire change it. More autonomous ruling from the different countries within the empire. Trade, make it easier, less oppressive. But unfortunately, he was murdered. So we then have First World War, Second World War, the face of the world really changing. And I often think if the Austro-Hungarian Empire had been allowed to develop naturally, very similar to the British Empire, where the satellite, the countries like Canada, like Australia, they eventually become independent. Yeah. And it would have been the same. But instead, because there was an Austro-Hungarian, 2 Austro-Hungarian soldiers were found in the ice up in the Alps of Italy, and they'd both been shot dead by a sniper, and they were completely preserved in the permafrost. They knew who they were. It was all still there. They'd been buried in the ice and their identities had been given. But the Austrian authority says, no, you can't give them to us because they're Austro-Hungarian. So they could have been from anywhere in that great big empire. So it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So I think, in fact, it's one of the reasons I did the William Tell video, Altdorf, because you're going back into the medieval times with the oppression of the Austro-Hungarians. Yeah. So much history, but we don't hardly ever look at it.
So you remember Kim?
Oh, yes, I know Kim Tozer and family. We still have the arrow you gave us at Warwick many years ago. It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, I used to, at Warwick and at Chepstow, well, any place, I'd meet people, and who I'd seen either at one castle or another. And we'd always sit down, have a chat, cup of tea if there was one available. It's nice. It's nice to talk.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was Brian Hernandez.
Brian Hernandez. That's who did the arrow for me. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to put a note next to it. Yeah. So I don't forget because, excuse me, it's one of my treasured things. Yeah.
Somebody is asking what your favorite historical movie is.
My favorite historical movie. I've got to take this hat off a minute. One of my favorites is Sergeant York, the black and white movie with the story of the American Private York, because wow, something I suppose it's a great film anyway, but something I've learned is heroes are ordinary people. They're not your Hollywoods. Yeah, they're ordinary people. And yeah, that one is one of my favorites. The original All Quiet on the Western Front, the Anderen Seite, yeah, the other side. Zulu, I love it, except there are inaccuracies, but hey, it's a great film. I think that's about it, really. When it comes to medieval, it's really difficult. Also, when it comes to ancient history, because you get like Gladiator. Remember the film Gladiator? I had real great hopes for that film. And don't get me wrong, it was a lovely film. Great film, right? Great fun. Loved it. However, at the beginning, they'd spent all that money on all of this Roman army. And I thought, wow, they've done some research there. Gosh, yes. And the cavalry are going to go out on the flanks. Wow. And then the Germans arrive. Yeah, the Germanic hordes. And if you listen to the back noise, it's from the film Zulu. Get rid of them shouting and screaming. It's Zulu. And I'm thinking, wow, no wonder the Germans are going to no wonder the Romans had a tough time. They're fighting the Germanic tribes and the Zulus, who happened to be in North Germany. And then when the Romans come down in formation, I'm thinking, yes, they're doing it right. And then they charge. And it's a free-for-all. And I think to myself, opportunity lost. All that money, they could have shown how the legions fought, how the Germanic tribes would have been in big trouble. And also, there's one flick in the film, literally as the Romans are forming up, the Germans are there. And then they've all got arrows sticking in their shields, and there's thousands of arrows on the ground. But the Romans have an open shot. And then the Romans begin to advance, and then blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking to myself, what a shame. Millions upon millions of dollars poured into that film. Great film. However, nah, mistakes made. Yeah, sad. Yeah, but hey, that's Hollywood, isn't it? It's nothing to do with me. Right anymore.
Schindler's List. Thoughts on Schindler's List?
Do you know, Schindler's List had to be done. Somebody had to do it. And it's an incredible film. But if you read the story of Oskar Schindler and the people around him, and then read some of the modern interviews before these people passed away on their thoughts of it, not one of those interviews said anything about the Jews, the Juden. They talked about Oskar Schindler, and they pulled him to pieces. How he was just one of us with his greedy nose in the trough. Yes, he was. He was a Nazi with his nose in the trough, for sure. But it's what he did afterwards. And I think one of the best parts of the film, best, is of the German officer who's losing his mind when they've had to dig up the dead. Well, that was at Baba Yar, just outside of Kiev. And it really does portray how sometimes, you know, the whole business of the horror will even drive the most hardened insane. But it's the end of the film, isn't it? When they show you the descendants of the Schindler's people. And it makes a difference. It was the old Jewish saying, you know, you save a life, you save the world. And it's just so important, you know? And it really hurts. Do you know, when I was up on the line in Cyprus, all of my workers were Turks. They were all Muslim, right? And there was not a single bad soul amongst my villagers. They were really quite something. All gone now. Yeah, the old age and so on and so forth. And they would have been horrified to see what's happening now between the different religions. And as for, well, my mother's family are of Jewish descent. So, and I've got friends in Israel. And my heart is with them, I'm afraid. I might be a Christian, but I have those Christian beliefs. You know, I could never kill a child. Could never see a child injured. Yeah. And yet there are people out there who would happily kill them for one other reason. Yeah. It's desperate, isn't it? But enough of that, please. Right, what we got? So
what do we got? Somebody, Chris Batten, would like you to talk about some of the models you've made.
Oh, Chris Batten, about the models I've made. So it all starts when you're going to get a training set, and you fail, and then you're in the army and you have to move your training set. So airfix soldiers, when I was a kid, trying to make a few models and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I'm grown up, I have the money, and I have the tools, and I can play. And I've got 2 models downstairs that I've got to scrap. I have got to learn to scrap the models once they've been used, collapse them down. Because I've got a base, which is a semi-permanent base that I can use. I'm about to do one for the Battle of Patay. I'm working the angles, and they're all very, very straightforward. Styrofoam base. The hills are styrofoam. The edges, there will be real stone from the garden. I will cover the whole lot in flock, grass and things. I'm hoping for Christmas, I'm hoping that I'm going to get a static grass maker to make the grass stand up. The trees, lots and lots of trees. But when it comes to the buildings, I use a lot of the railway cardboard building styles, and I've learned to reproduce them. So I'll get Julie to copy me stonework, brickwork, and then I will make a cardboard castle. I've tried doing 3D printing, but that gets me stuck with a certain kind of castle. So cardboard tubes, all of it, I will literally go out and I will make even a paper. I did a paper battlement the one day, all the hoardings. It was just pure paper, but I'd stiffened it with glue. So cheap, and what we would call in England, Blue Peter. I have a model I'd made earlier, and that's what I do, is I will look at pictures, I will look at plans, photographs if the castles are still standing, and I will try and recreate that picture, and then I will put the players upon it. Yeah, if you could see the amount of Wars of the Roses figures I've got to paint and continue gluing, you blow your mind. Because I'm fully intent. I've got about 3 or 4 films to do on the end of the 100 Years' War, and then it'll be the Wars of the Roses, and I intend to really give it a good hit, because it was such a pivotal time for the history of Britain, and also Europe, because it affected Europe. So I dare say my models will be there, and I will get a ribbing from some French people that the fact that they reckon they won the 100 Years' War. Well, we came back. Not only that, I think we left a lot of children behind as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Question: why did you decide to retire in Canada, and also do you have any Canadian relatives, since you frequent there often? But we actually live here. That's from Green Butterfly.
Right, Green Butterfly. Why did we come to Canada? Well, Stuart, my son, when he finished in Afghanistan, he tried to live in England, and sometimes as a veteran, unfortunately in Britain, depending on the area you live in, you're not welcome. And he had 1 or 2 experiences. I've been through it myself, not being welcome. We're not born in that village. We don't belong. Well, my son was an army brat. Where does he belong? Where I come from in England, you can't go there anymore. It's a bit of a no-go area, right? You find out for that yourself, the centre of Birmingham, or where I'm from, Nechells, Aston, Alum Rock. So I began to feel that I didn't belong in England. Yeah, simply didn't belong. People say, "Oh, where do you come from?" I used to make up stories. Oh, Warwick, but I didn't. I come from the centre of Birmingham. And Stuart moved to Canada. He got a job as a long-distance lorry driver, moved himself and his family, because he was married at the time, over here. And we came to see him, and we had the most abysmal visit. But then we went to the Rockies, and we dog sledded over the Rocky Mountains and saw a different side to Canada. And then Stuart moved eventually from the southern border with Canada and the States up to Saskatoon, here in the middle of the prairies of Saskatchewan. And when he said, "I'm moving to Saskatoon," I'm going, "What's this, Saskatoon?" So we visited Saskatoon. It's got the Saskatchewan River running right through it. And I thought, wow, isn't this a lovely area? Wow, loved it. So we started to visit Stuart. He divorced, unfortunately, remarried. We came over for the wedding. met his new family. People were just really nice. And we started to visit every year, and we keep going back. And it sat in Calgary Airport, and I'd say to Julie, why are we going back? You know, we lived in a village for 25 years. We had 2 friends
In that village.
in that village
Mm.
because we weren't born there. Yeah. And I says to Julie the one day, I says, we should consider moving out to Canada for a new life. I needed to retire because I was driving 3-4 hours every day to a school, to a castle, doing a day's work, and then driving back. And through the traffic of England, blow your mind. So we decided, we told our dear friends, Jackie and Gary and Cy and Debs, and Paul and Sarah, and then the family went, good for you. And my mum was a bit perturbed. She said, well, what are you going to do out there? I said, I'm going to retire. I said, I've got to, or I'm going to kill myself. And so we had a look at it, and we told our son Joshua, who's still back in England, expecting their first child. And everybody says, yeah, go for it. So we put in our application, which normally takes 5 years. Ours took 2 years because they obviously read who it was. Julie. And snapped us up. And here we are. I mean, I'm looking over the snow at the park at the moment. We're in a lovely situation. It's a busy little town, but it's nice. Saskatoon's fine. Of course, it's got problems. Everywhere's got problems. But it's nice. And so I retired. Not because I started to go into some schools. The history bug was still hot on me, the archery and all of that. And then I said to Julie, we should do some YouTubes. And Julie managed to resurrect our YouTube channel that we'd started years before. And there we go. We are in it. And the rest is history. We are still semi-retired, but we have a thriving business making these different films and being in touch with people all over the world. Look, there are people coming and going. So those who are going, Merry Christmas to you. Okay. And I will tell you now, Julie religiously every morning sits down with the comments. Yeah. And she relates them to me and we discuss every single one. Yeah. And it's good. It's good. I got one here. Again, this is ODA 561. Again, my grandfather crossed the English Channel to fight the Germans in France 81 years ago this day. And it's what he's got here. He says, what about his sacrifice? I'm glad he's not alive today to see what Europe has become. Shame. Do you know, there was a British veteran who was interviewed, Second World War veteran. This guy was a sailor on the convoys that went round to the Archangel in the North Sea to Russia. That's some of the hardest sailors, you know, or missions you could ever wish to do. And he was asked just November the 11th this year, how do you feel? I love it when interviewers, I've been interviewed, say, how do you feel about, I thought, oh yeah, wonderful, great, my mate was killed. Yeah. And so they said to this old veteran there, I think he's 100, 101. And they said, how do you feel about what you did? And he says, when I visit a cemetery and I see the white stones with my comrades buried underneath, he says, I've realized he wasn't worth it. And these two interviewers kind of, what? I wasn't worth it. All that sacrifice, everything we did, wasn't worth it. And then, what do you mean? He said, well, we fought for freedom of speech. Look what we have now in Europe. All of that sacrifice was a waste of time. So my great-grandfather, great uncles, distant cousins who were killed, Dieppe in the Canadian Army, Normandy, the Somme, Passchendaele, Gallipoli, all of those places. And look what the modern politicians have done with it. But I must not get political.
No.
Yeah. But
it's Christmas.
Hey, it's Christmas, isn't it? So Absolutely. How you feel about it now? Oh dear. Shameful. Yeah. There's some comments here. There's literally so many. My parents, this is, I can't read that one. What's that say there?
Which one? This one here.
Who ate all the cheese? Yeah. My parents remember you as the Warwick Bowman. I was a bit young then to remember myself, but they've always held you in high regard. And he does now, watching the videos. Merry Christmas. This is lovely. Yeah. My grandparents met and got married in Berlin at the end of World War II. I had to wait over 2 years for my grandmother to be cleared of being a communist or a Nazi before being reunited in the US. Yeah, lots of that kind of things, isn't it? Yeah. No, there's a few, you know, reflecting on what parts of England are like now compared to how they used to be. Yeah, no matter how far the world falls, remember the Lord, follow him. Yeah, yeah, and I do. Yeah. It's important though, you know, I've got somebody here saying Angel, yeah, says, you know, important though, the state of the world today, it's nuts. But the fact is, you've got people like us, you know, and that's how it'll survive. And we got Roger Haddock, happy memories of Chatling End in Denham. This is where I was a policeman. Yeah. Yeah. We were both on duty when the aeroplane crashed. A Blenheim bomber crashed at Denham Airfield. It's funny, isn't it? You know, people who still get in touch. I can't remember the matron's name. No, he asked if I remembered a matron's name at the nursing home, but I can't remember it. Yeah. So many, you know, literally so many comments here that it blows your mind. Yeah. You know, I got one here.
Comment.
We have two beautiful babies. This is from
Stacey K.
Stacey K. Yeah, I have two beautiful babies. We want to raise them with values. What advice would be passed from your generation to the next? You know, the gang of five, the students who volunteered when they were 15 at the museum, people come to me and say, they're still with you. They are still, you know, part of the team. And I said, well, that's it. I made sure as soon as they arrived, they were part of the team. I listened to them. I guided them. Now, some of them are guiding me. Yeah. At 19, in fact, one of them turned 20 the other day, and they are still with me or still with the museum. So listen to them. Try and understand them, but bring them into your world. You don't step into their world. Bring them into your world. Yeah. Your values. And they will respond to them for sure. Yeah.
So do you want to do, we've done a random comment picker for our giveaway. We've got some t-shirts.
Oh yeah, so our little giveaway, and we've done what is this what you've done with your?
Yeah, with the app. So
we got three winners, have we?
Yeah.
And they need to get back to us without their.
Yeah, if they want to email us at historysquad@icloud.com, you'll find that on the homepage about us section on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so we've got three winners here. Yeah, Blue Tack 97, Bill Zabib, and Tyneside Tradesman. I like the Tyneside Tradesman. That's a good handle. So if you three, you can get in touch with us with your addresses and with
size
and your size as well. Yeah, and we'll send you a t-shirt. Right? Okay. Right. What's the time? I have no idea.
Oh, it's getting on. We'll have to wrap up soon.
Yeah.
But somebody just asked a question. Who's that? I can't see it.
Oh, it's interesting. This Nellie. I live in Warwick. I'm of mixed heritage. My great uncle served in World War I, and my father was stationed in Germany at the end of World War II. There were people of colour who served their country. Do you know, my buddy in Helmstedt was mixed race, and he was my buddy. He was my friend. And I was explaining to somebody because they wanted me to separate the sniper section in the museum. And you've got what they call First Nations, which is your indigenous tribe. But then the Inuit used to be known as the Eskimos of the far north. And then the Métis, who are also mixed French, Cree, a lot of them. So mixed French or British and First Nations. And they said, you shouldn't have them together. And I said, why? Well, the Inuit are Inuit, the First Nations are First Nations, and the Métis are something else. And I said, listen, I said, you've never served, have you? So what do you mean? I said, you have no idea, do you? All of these guys in this cabinet here, they served in the Canadian Army. They fought for Canada. But you break it down a little bit more. You fight for the man next to you. You fight for the man just in front of you. You don't consider the color of his skin. Now, we have a chap who was badly wounded in, I think it was Afghanistan. Now, I might mispronounce his name. Bahar or Bari. He won the Victoria Cross. He's got black skin. The guys he ran to under fire, I don't think he sorted through the bodies of these men to see if they were black, white, or brown. And that's the same as me. Lives I've saved. I never once considered the color of the skin of the person I was fighting to save their life. And I've saved a few. Yeah. And often people say, yeah, but these people fought. Yeah. Oh, yep, they've been forgotten. Well, they haven't been forgotten by us. The veterans. We're the important ones, and we're the ones who remember, because we fought alongside the guys and the girls too. Okay? So when it comes to the question of color, war breaks it all down, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Johnston B. Harry was the town.
Johnston B. Harry.
Harry. Yeah, Smudge just gave you that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What a guy. My son, Stu's met him, and they've sat down and had a beer together. Yeah. Heroes are ordinary people who in extraordinary circumstances do the most extraordinary deeds. And that's a fact. Yeah. People have shook my hand and they've called me hero. No, I'm just a Kevin. That's all I am. He's Kev. Right.
So one last question, and I think we need to wrap it up. My name's Dingo. Have you ever been to Australia?
Dingo. Have I ever been to Australia? Yeah, I loved it. I love Australia. I really do. I should have been an Australian. My father wanted to go to Australia, but he missed the boat. Otherwise, I'd have been an Australian. I'm often mistaken for being Australian. No, I'm English. But hey, how's it going, mate? I love Australia. And I've studied quite deeply your history. In fact, my family, going back a couple of hundred years, helped found Australia. They didn't go willingly, of course. They didn't. No. They went in shackles to Port Arthur and other places, Tasmania as well as Australia, to help settle that lovely country that has just suffered that terrible, terrible massacre, eh? But no, I love Australia. I really did enjoy it. Even the bloody snakes, mate. Right, I'm going to have to wrap up, right? Because I've got a Christmas Eve to get on with myself. Can I just say, I hope you've enjoyed our chat. You know, it's a bit one-sided with Kev, but I've been looking at all these lovely things. Yeah, got one here, Merry Christmas from a Newfoundlander. Well, my family went to Newfoundland before it was Canadian. So there you go. Okay. So from me, from Julie and a snoring Ollie, hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Yeah. And please keep safe, and we'll be in touch soon. Okay. Bye for now. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thanks very much. Merry Christmas.
Here she is.
Hey,
right.
The other half.
The other half.
Better half.
The better half. Yeah. I'm always told the better. And she often shouts down the corridor these affectionate words. Kevin. Do I care? No. Merry Christmas. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. There we go.